Well, yeah,
Yes
with a
and
big
no.
asterisk. We've got all the age groups and everything here, but again, back to that E word, can't keep them all, can't get them all engaged,
Yeah,
can't keep them all
yeah,
engaged,
yeah.
and that's what.
Okay. So
Well, it's the young married.
Yeah.
We have a couple who are wonderful singers, and they're from Chicago, they're not gonna stay here forever.
yeah.
And is there other people then for them to mix with, to form a clique or whatever you will, or a group? Not really, I don't know, I don't think so. Maybe there are a lot of people out there searching for the same thing, but they're all kind of, it's like magnets, negative and positive, repelling each other. You can get them, turn them around the right way, they would attract each other. I don't know, but
Can we just ask this thing? Enough diversity? Too much diversity?
I would say as a congregation, unfortunately, no. I would like to see more diversity.
Yeah.
But I don't think we are as much as we could have.
Well, let's make two comments, if I may. There's a writer called Richard Raw, who is a Franciscan, and if you Google his name, you'll find he's written lots of things, and he even does a daily meditation that you can sign up for and get free on your computer. And he has a great thing about involving men in the church, because a lot of men feel that coming to church, you might lose some bits of you if you actually go to church, and it's actually not going to be good for you, because it's mainly a female kind of environment. And he argues in his books that women have had their kind of feminist movement, womanist movement. There's been all sorts of possibilities for women to rethink their role in society. And that's left some men either going macho or sort of just kind of having no identity at all. And he goes with scripture. I mean, the stories about Jacob and him. He had an incredibly awkward family. His father's father nearly sacrificed him. His mother, was a manipulator and sent him off to get, at the age of 39 or 40, to get a marriage partner from her own family. It was a devious kind of family, and it took ages for Jacob to find himself, which he did at the Jabbok, when he had that wrestling with the angel, and then he found courage and anger, which he'd been sitting on for years, and was able to be a real man. Now, Richard Raw actually lives in the States, and he runs workshops to help people, men, to become mature and kind of confident in their Christianity and in their maleness, and puts the two together, which I think is really important. And he's written a very famous book called The Wild Man's Journey. And he says, unless we find ways of initiating young men into being adult, grown-up men, you end up with kind of, and it's partly true for women as well, but he's talking about men. You end up with old men who are still young. And he actually uses four very powerful metaphors. He talks about men as being kings and warriors, and lovers and wise ones. And he's very clever, because he says, if you actually allow any of those characters to move on their own, you're in for trouble. If you have a man who is simply a king, well, you don't want to be in the same garden, really. Or, again, one who is a warrior. A warrior needs a king to be loyal to, who will keep him in check. And you don't want a man who's simply a wandering lover either, do you, really? You actually want somebody who is actually able to defend his family and to be part of a network. And again, being wise is fine, but you actually have got to have some assertiveness as well. And putting those four metaphors together can actually create, and our society is desperately in need of men who are not playing a role, but actually are deeply sure of who they are as men in their own hearts. I find that very moving, and I've read all of his stuff, and I've actually been hear him speak, and I recommend you follow that one up.
You know, just if I could, you look at those 4 qualities,
Yeah.
and you say, Jesus, how does he fit in there? Was he a king? Yes. Was he a lover? Yes, he was a lover.
Yeah.
Was he wise? Very much so.
Yeah.
And he was a warrior.
Yeah.
He was a tough man.
That's right.
He was out there
Yeah.
trudging for 3 years he was out
Yes.
there,
Yeah, that's right.
and you know, and his
Yes.
disciples were that way. They weren't
Yeah.
wimps.
Yeah.
They
And
weren't.
he's actually written a book about, I think, it's got the word brothers in it, and he picks out about 8 characters from the Bible and works his theories around each of them. It's well worth looking up. The other thing I was going to mention was, in England now, there's a great movement for, if you have a wish to be more diverse, or if you want your parish to be something, then rather than just sort of looking at the ceiling and thinking, well, that would be nice, we actually have what we call mission action planning. And our bishop makes every parish have a mission action plan, which we have to hand in every year to the bishop. Not like, you know, school kids, but sort of for your own benefit, really. And so this is just, you know, the one that we've got, which has got, we've now got 6, and I'm sure you've got something similar, but I'm just showing off them. We've got 6 areas where we try to work, and one is called worship and spirituality. So we've got a whole load of actions that are planned with a time scale and what the planned outcomes are. We've got one on welcoming, integrating and caring, and that's got the same. And we have a core group of 4 people who actually are responsible to make sure that something happens, and they can work with whoever else they like. So, and then we've got learning, living and sharing, which is evangelism as well as growing in the faith. Making connections, which is linking with other churches, with society, with one another, because we're pretty poor at communicating. What we do with our buildings, because actually the way we live in the building tells us a lot about who we are, what kind of community we are, and then boring but important resources, because actually how you make and spend money, as Jesus would emphasise, is, you know, very much part of the gospel. So I'm just thinking that if you're coming to a time of rethinking what you do, that might be just an interesting way to go forward. So just to finish off my 5 things, spiritual leadership, an aligned vision, a respect for diversity, and then actually relationships matter more than strategy. You know, you can have all the plans in all the plans you like, but unless people love each other, you're wasting your time. And so I'm not saying that vision and strategy aren't important, but it's having meals together, having parties together, talking to each other, caring for each other, which has got to be the glue that makes it possible for some kind, you know, attention to each other is as important as what we try to do. It's like if you try to run a group, I'm sure if you've all learned this, there's 3 things if you're running a group. You've got to actually do the work, yeah? You've got to pay attention to individuals, and you've got to form a group, and you've got to do the 3 things at the same time. And if you've ever been a group leader, you would know that. So if somebody comes in saying, I've just run my car into a wall, you can't say, well, that's really interesting. What we're talking about tonight is in Matthew's Gospel. And yeah, or you know, if you're running a group and you know somebody sits looking out the window all the time and doesn't take part, you couldn't say it's been a great success, even if you got to chapter 7 of St. Matthew, and you know, it's holding those 2 things together, and it's quite a tough cause sometimes. And all of those things, I think, then lead to a sense of having an identity as a church, being proud of being of who you are, but never at the expense of being cut off from the neighbourhood. And that's a real paradox, isn't it? How to be together and diverse, but to be, as it were, always trying to face outwards at the same time. Now, in order for that to happen, I'm going to just give out these bits of paper. I think we have to make sure that our leadership, this episcopate that I'm talking about, is really on the back of these sheets, would you like to just make sure everybody's got it? You'll see a little grid with some words in boxes. spell it out. By organic, I mean wanting people to grow in maturity, wanting the church to grow, wanting people to grow in faith. Directional is something about not wasting energy by not having a sense of direction or purpose. Because you haven't got the resources to do a million things. You can only do what you choose to do carefully. But thirdly, there has to be somebody who says, this is what time it is, and this is the boundary of what we're doing, because we're a church, we're not a golf club. And I've just put down under each heading a number of metaphors that just open that up. And I wonder if you could just have a look at those metaphors and see which ones you understand or prefer, so that maybe just look at them on your own first, and then maybe just in twos around the table, just talk about them and see which work for you.